Corruption is so systemic, it's so pervasive in Afghanistan that it only serves to exacerbate the already difficult obstacles facing the government's ability to govern effectively. Not only that, but it undermines the security of both the international forces and the Afghan people. It erodes the people's confidence in their government, and while it leads them to distrust us, and it leads to the waste of billions of taxpayer dollars. Yet for all of these warnings and all of the reports we have had about corruption in Afghanistan, we have yet to develop an anti-corruption policy. Even Karzai, if you can believe it, acknowledged that this is a major obstacle to progress. How is it even possible that we still don't have an anti-corruption policy, even as we're sending billions of dollars in direct assistance to Afghan ministries despite all the warnings? And do we have any insight into updated amounts of direct assistance? And sticking with the direct assistance issue, after the assessment that the Afghan ministries were not ready, were not capable of receiving direct assistance, and after recommendations from GAO to mitigate all identified risk before proceeding with direct assistance, USAID apparently continued anyway without regard to these warnings. Why did USAID continue to provide direct assistance despite the warnings? And are there any other instances where USAID has ignored recommendations? Also, how would you characterize your relationship with USAID? And what does Congress need to do to ensure that USAID is in full compliance before going forward with these high-risk programs? I'm also greatly concerned about the duplication of efforts, where we see overlaps between State and DOD on infrastructure projects because there's no central and comprehensive database. I know that one thing you both would say is seriously lacking and something that we need to address. What else would you say Congress needs to do to ensure that USAID, State, DOD are all accountable for these billions of dollars that we're spending in Afghanistan? And what tools do you need us to give to you to ensure that you have everything you need to continue to do your work? I know it will be extremely difficult for you with the troop drawdown and the uncertainty over the BSA, but we want to help you to keep you safe while you continue to perform your duties. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, starting with your last point, and that is on assistance that we can need, I think it would be useful for Congress to respond to the very valid recommendation that GAO has made about a centralized database. And I don't know if that's authorization language or appropriations language. One of the hardest problems we have, and I'm certain GAO and I know my colleagues and the other IGs have, is we don't even know where the money has been spent. So you start with that problem. And by requiring the agencies to put together that database, that would be extremely useful. We are starting to do that ourselves. I think in some of the background material we gave you, we are actually trying to collect this information. But it really isn't the role of the Inspector General to be the first one to collect this. This is something that should be done. As for the issue about direct assistance, I think a serious problem here was that AID had finally done some really good assessments, and we praised them in our audit that came out earlier this year about the direct assistance. They assessed the Afghan ministries, and what we had hoped they would have done would have been to actually use that as leverage to bargain on conditionality to get in place, particularly in the future where it's going to be more difficult to go out there and kick the tires of the programs. But unfortunately, they waived it, and we don't really have an answer on why they waived it.
If I can actually chime in with some updated numbers. And first, your point about corruption. Corruption, as we all have said in the beginning, will remain a challenge and has been one of the biggest challenges that the U.S. and others face in operating in Afghanistan. With regard to direct assistance funding, the latest figures we have is roughly the amount is $800 million for 2012 and approximately $900 million in 2013 in direct assistance. That shows a drop-off from the 1.4, and it's closer to their target of 50%, but not quite, has not met that goal. So it has come down somewhat, but it's still pretty significant. In terms of what more Congress can do, I would definitely agree, as we've sort of suggested, that you consider mandating that there be a shared database or a comprehensive database that has the entire inventory of development projects, especially given over $23 billion has been invested of the taxpayers' money. And that, as I mentioned earlier, State and USAID have taken action. Afghan Info has been designated as the official database. However, the Department of Defense, despite various briefings with USAID and others, have basically not agreed to routinely put their stuff in that database automatically, or share that database, or use that database, or any other database for that matter. And so we basically have suggested Congress now may need to mandate that, given the SERP funding, given the AIF funding, the Task Force on Business Operations, all the potential funding that exists there. And we looked at this in a little more in-depth, comparing those 3 programs to the USAID-funded efforts under ESF, or Development Assistance. And we didn't necessarily find exact duplication, but we found 53 cases of potential duplication and overlap between the agencies. And the reason why we couldn't definitively say that is because the data that DoD was maintaining did not go down to the level it needed to go down to of capturing data on the villages that were receiving the assistance. So we think a shared database would encompass all of that sort of information. I think also continue holding hearings like you're doing today on key oversight issues would put the attention of the Congress on the agencies who are requesting money every year, additional funding. With respect to USAID's cooperation with GAO and probably the oversight community as well, I would say that over the last 2 years or 18 months, there have been some significant challenges in terms of our normal operation with USAID. They previously have been one of the more cooperative agencies, but we have run into major challenges in trying to carry out our mission for the Congress.
Thank you very much. Yes, Mr. Supko.
Chairman, if I can just add, I echo the statement by my colleague from GAO in that although we have had very good support from DoD on cooperation, particularly under General Dunford, General Cole, and a number of those colleagues over there, we have had some problems with AID and getting access, particularly through overclassification, and we think an improper classification of some material as unclassified, sensitive but unclassified. But can I just add to my colleague's numbers? I think he was focusing on the State and USAID direct assistance, but we have to keep in mind the biggest player in all of this is DoD. And so the direct assistance, DoD is giving approximately $4.2 billion right now in direct assistance, and that is going directly to the Ministry of Interior and Ministry of Defense, and also going through some of the trust funds. So that is the biggest play, and although we were focusing on the aid ministerial assessments, there still has never been a ministerial assessment on the Ministry of Interior and the Ministry of Defense by DoD, and we have highlighted that as a potential problem.
Well, thank you very much.